Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Arms, your beat source. In this video, I'm going to show you how to mix an instrumental. In case you're worried that you're not seeing my face on the screen right now, I'm really sorry about that. And it is because I've not gotten a very good camera that I can use to record myself. But I believe with your support on this channel, we are going to get to that level. So if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please kindly do. And always make sure to like and leave a comment. That would help us grow very fast and get to that level. With that being said, let's get started. So what is mixing? Mixing is basically finding a problem in your song or your beat and fixing it. Okay, so for example, let's say you have an instrument that is too loud and is overshadowing the other instrument in your mix, in your beat, then that is a problem that needs to be fixed. Or let's say you have an instrument that has too much of low end and it's making your track moody, that is also a problem that needs to be fixed. So we are going to be mixing and fixing all the problems. Okay. By the way, this beat is a beat that we made in a previous video on this channel where I show you how to easily make an afrobeat instrumental. It is a pretty simple and basic beat, but the steps that we use to create it is a very vital step for beginners. If you've not watched that video, I'll link it somewhere around the screen so that you can go watch it after this video, or I'll leave the link in the description below. Okay, so now let's get started. First, let me play the beat so that I can refresh our memory. That is, if you have watched the video where we made this beat. Okay, so that is the beat. I just felt I should let you know something. That's what we call counter melody. Okay, so right now, while this beat was playing, I was having a melody in my head that I feel we could use it as a counter melody to the main melody. Okay, counter melody is basically a melody that supports the main melody. Okay, so now let's try to add a counter melody and make this instrumental more fuller than it is. Okay, so let's look for an instrument that will play the melody. Like I said, I'll try as much as I can to be using native plugin and free plugins on this channel, okay, so that everyone would have access to it and follow through with all the videos. Okay, so let's use Citrus. Let's now look for a preset. Okay, I think this is fine. Okay, instead of writing the note in the piano roll, I feel I should just play it on my keyboard. All right, let me quickly just record it so that we can proceed with the mixing. Okay, so now we need to quantize it so that it will be on beat, okay? Because I wasn't perfect playing it, so to quantize, you do Alt Q to quantize everything, then accept. Now let's play. So Alt R to randomize the piano velocity, the velocity of the notes, and That's all for that. Now let's get started with mixing. Okay, so to get started with mixing, you have to send all your instrument to the mixer because that is where the mixing will take place. So to send your instrument to the mixer, you simply need to select all the instruments, then Control L to send everything that you've selected to the mixer. Now we have everything on the mixer. Okay, so we can get started with mixing. But first, whenever I'm mixing, I like mixing my drums first before getting to the melodies. Okay, so I'm just going to start with the kick, or to keep everything in order, I will just move the kick to the first insert, then the conga, the bongo, and the snare. So we only have just four instruments for the drum. And like I said earlier, the beat is just a basic beat. So now I will solo everything, then listen to the beat. If there's any, listen to the kick. If there's any problem that needs to be fixed. Okay, there's no much problems. Just to cut part of the lows that has nothing to do with the kick. Part of the highs that has nothing to do with the kick. I like my kick sounding thick and heavy. That's why I'm cutting this much so that I will just have only the hit part of the kick. Another thing I like doing is to use this fruity soft clipper to make it more heavier and thick so that it would punch very well. So let's get it. Clipper. Turn down the threshold and increase the post. As you can see before, listen before, after. As you can hear, it's now more punchier than it used to be. Okay, so that will be all for the kick. Now let's proceed to the conga. Bongo rather, sorry, I kept on calling it conga because they sound almost the same. So what I would do is just to bring in my parametric EQ again, then cut. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm paying attention to where the heat of that bongo is. Okay, if I should reset what I've done here now and pay attention, you see that the heat of the bongo is around here because that place is more um red. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but just pay attention and look at it. Okay, so you see, that's where the body of the bongo is. So I'm cutting everything below that area, then everything above that area. At the same time, listening and paying attention if I'm cutting too much or too low. Because once you start cutting too much, the bongo will start sounding weak or somehow funny. You know what I mean? You can try it and see, okay? Okay, like this is okay. Now, I want to emphasize use your ear. Don't just look at the visuals and make decision. You have to use your ear. If it's not sounding good, don't mind what the visual is telling you. Focus more on what you are hearing. Judge more with what you are hearing, rather. Okay. So now I would add reverb rate. Okay, just a little reverb, and that's fine. Now let's move to the next instrument. So I'm just going to cut the frequencies that are not part of the frequency that I want. Okay. Okay, I've cut too much now, so I have to back it a little. That's why I say you should always use your ear whenever you're doing this. And I think this is fine like this. Now, if you have two instruments that are sounding almost alike, it means they are living in the same almost the same frequency range. What you can do is to pan one to left and one to right. Okay, just like this bongo and the second bongo here. Now, so what I'm going to do now is to pan this a little bit to the left, then this a little bit to the right. Now I will listen if the panning is too much mm, or too small, then I'll know what to do, either to increase or decrease. And by panning instrument like this, your mix will be open and it will have this kind of wide feeling, like it will be spacious, which is sometimes very good. I think I'm okay with that like that. So I'll move to the next instrument. Okay, so with this snare, I'm just going to add a parametric EQ and cut some of the low end. Now, I told you earlier that I pay attention to the visuals, then I'll cut areas that the heat is not in and leave the area that the heat is in, because that is where the body of the instrument lives. But sometimes you might want to cut even the area that the body of the instrument is. That is where the heat is, because maybe you might not like the way that frequency there is sounding. Okay, so now I'm going to cut a little bit of the high end from this snare, even though the heat is much there. Let me play it so that you can see, because I feel it's a little too sharp, so I'm just going to cut a little. Okay, that's fine. So let's try reverb on it. When you're mixing, you have to try out things, and anyone that feels good on it, anyone that is sounding okay, you leave it. Anyone that doesn't, you remove it. Okay, whenever you try something, you use this indicator here. If you look beside the fruity reverb 2, you are going to see this indicator lighting on and off. Okay, you can use it to do before and after, like bypass the effect, so that you hear how it sounds like before the effect, then turn it back on and hear how it sounds with the effect. Then you can make your decision whether to leave it or not. Okay, I think a little bit of the reverb is good on it. Okay, so whenever you add your reverb and you feel it's too much, you just turn down the wet a little, or you use this mix knob here. If you take it backward this way, it will reduce the level of the wetness. Okay, that is if you don't want to do it from here, but I've already done it from here, so I'm just going to undo this. Now to the next instrument, which is FAKs. That's the actual chord progression. So there's no much problem here, but I'm just going to cut a little bit of the lows and high. I'm cutting the low so that the low end of it will not make smoothie, and the high just to give it a little bit of control because I feel the high end is too loose. Okay, that's fine. Now let's move to the next instrument. Okay, so there's the pad. If you watch the video where this beat was made, you might have noticed that the pad is now sounding different. Yes, I actually changed the pad because when I listened to it, I feel the pad we used then wasn't it. So I decided to just throw in a different pad to replace it with a different pad. Now I'm just going to cut a little bit of the highs. One thing I like doing with my pad is opening it up, like making it wide so that it would fill up the atmosphere and make the whole of the track sounding like it's in a wide space. So to do that, I'll just bring in this plugin here. Big switch. It's a free plugin. You can go download it and turn it on, then reduce the mix a little so that it won't be too wide because too much of everything is bad. So let's do before and after magic switch. Now this is before. As you can see, the pad is in the middle, but once it's turned on, you see the pad will open up and it will fill up the space. Now let's move to the next instrument, which is the bass. Okay, so what I'm going to do with the bass is just to cut some of the high end because bass naturally lives in the low end. So we won't be touching the low end, maybe just a little. So we're cutting everything above 500 hertz, then below 20 hertz, because everything below 20 hertz is inaudible to the human ears. So there's no point leaving it there. It will only make your track moody. Okay? So it's better to just take it out. Okay, so in case I've not mentioned, if you've been paying attention, you must have noticed that throughout the mixing process, we've been cutting out the low end. That is most of the time everything below 100. And this is simply because those frequencies below 100 can make your track moody if they are not well taken care of. So it is advisable to always cut any frequency below 100. But there is an exception, and that is when you are dealing with a bass instrument, that is your bass. Okay, because bass naturally lives in the low end. Okay, that's between 500 hertz down. Okay, so you don't cut the bass the way you will cut a piano, a flute, and other instruments. Okay, because bass naturally lives in the low end. Okay, sometimes you might want to cut a little, like cut from anything below 20 hertz, because like I said earlier, every frequency below 20 hertz are inaudible to the human ears. So you can cut from 20 hertz, but then you still have to be careful, use your ears and listen if it's not affecting your bass. Okay, but if it is, you have to back it a little. Okay, now let's proceed. So let's move to the next instrument. So for the melody, I think I like the way it's already sounding. So I'm just going to use the parametric EQ. Okay, if you notice, cutting everything below 100 on this very melody instrument right now is not good for it. Like, it takes away from the quality of the melody. Okay, that's why you have to use your ears. Even if you are cutting parts that you think are not necessary, use your ears. Sometimes you might just cut and mess up with your instrument. So I'm just going to back it a little. Okay, now I feel a little reverb will make it sound more better. So I'm just going to add a little bit of reverb. So I don't like my melody being dead in the middle, so I'm just going to pan it either left or right a little. Now to the counter melody. So I'll bring in parametric Q again. And for the counter melody, I'm going to cut some of the highs because I don't want it to be too sharp to compete with the main melody. Another thing I would like to do is to pan it to the left. Okay, since I've panned the main melody to the right a little, I want to pan the counter melody a little bit to the left so that they will not have to fight with each other. are done with the mixing process because we have actually gone through all the instruments we have and have done the needful on all of them. Okay, so now let's listen to the final results. Okay, okay, right now, obviously, the beat is sounding more cleaner and interesting than it used to be before the mixing process. Okay, so that is how you mix your beat. We have come to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next video where I will show you how to arrange your beat into a song structure. Thank you, and see you in the next video.